get started. We have a tight agenda today, so we're just going to get right into it, even though people continue to join us.
Great. Thank you, Dylan. Good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, for carving time out of your day to join us for this initial local comprehensive plan workshop. My name is Kate Maldonado. I am the Assistant Director of Planning and Development. I'm joined here by several members from Planning and Development. We have Elizabeth Jenkins, Director of Planning and Development, Jim Kupfer, our Senior Planner, as well as Kyle Pedicini, the real Kyle, our Community and Economic Development Planner. I'd also like to recognize our local comprehensive planning committee who have been charged with steering this effort. We're here today to talk about our local comprehensive plan, which is a long-term vision and growth policy that will guide the future of Barnstable over the next 10 or so years. This effort of updating our plan has been divided into two phases. The first phase, which we're here to discuss today, focuses on data related to our existing conditions, as well as developing a vision statement for the future of Barnstable. In the subsequent phase, we will reflect on the existing conditions, as well as the vision to develop targeted action plan. At this time, I would like to recognize our several consultant team members who have helped to provide their expertise, have helped us to gather our existing condition data, and will oversee this workshop today. From Barrett Planning Group, we have Judy Barrett, Jill Solankis, Carly Vendetti, and Alexis Lanzalota. From Horsley Witten, we have Jeff Davis. And from Dodson and Flanker, we have Peter Flanker, Dylan Sussman, as well as Jack Sweeney Taylor. Lastly, before I hand this over to Dylan, I would like to note that the agenda, presentation, and meeting materials for this workshop today, as well as input that we have received through our 5 or so months of community input, are located on the project website, barnstablelcp.com. And once on the webpage, if you click on the document library tab, that'll take you to all of the materials with the Bringing It Together workshop, which we're here today at the top of the page. So you can follow along by visiting barnstablelcp.com. Thank you again for carving time out of your day, and I'd like to hand it over to Dylan.
Thanks, Kate. Good day, everybody. I'm going to start sharing my screen, and we'll have a presentation. All right, here we are on February 28th to talk about visioning for Barnstable. So we're gathered here today to talk about creating a vision for Barnstable's local comprehensive plan. The objectives today is to start that process. We're not going to get to the end and come out of this with a fully formed vision, but we do hope that we'll have the key elements for that vision, including the shared community values that would drive future decisions in Barnstable, town decisions. And then also sort of the key elements of the vision, the big ideas for it, the things that you guys think will be priorities for the town moving forward, and also the things that you think are touchstones that make the town what it is now and what it should be in the future. So as I said at the very beginning, we have a pretty packed meeting today. So Kate got through our welcome in less than 5 minutes. Thank you, Kate. We're going to have about 20 minutes of presentations. We're going to go through themes of the input so far, some information about existing conditions that's been gathered, and then talk about what a vision is. Then we'll have about 45 minutes for breakout groups, talking about community priorities and values, and then talking about the 2010 vision and what the vision should be for the future. Then we'll come back together for a report out and wrap up the meeting. If some of you need to leave early, that's fine. We understand it's the middle of the day. So staying for that first hour would be great, or more than that. Basically, to the end of the breakout groups isn't a natural time to leave. So stay as long as you can. All right, I'm going to turn it over to James to tell you about the extensive community engagement that's been done so far and what the key themes of that are.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Dylan. Good morning, afternoon, everyone. Jim Kupfer, Senior Planner, Planning and Development with the town of Barnstable. And for the past 5 months, as Kate mentioned, we've been crisscrossing through our community to try and hear from you all. It's actually been a lot of fun. You probably heard my spiel at one of our sessions. I'm a Hyannis resident. I've been doing planning for about 15 or so odd years, but I've never got to do this local comprehensive plan for my community that I live in. So I'm really excited to take on this effort and build a plan that really means a lot to all of us as residents. So there's a lot on that screen. I don't expect you to read it, but the takeaway is we've been a lot of places. We've been throughout our communities, all of our villages, trying to reach to as many people as possible, going to civic associations, going to Main Street strolls and Love Live Local Fest and the Barnstable Association of Recreational Shell Fishing. Anyone who was willing to have us, we were there, and we were excited to be there to hear from everyone. And these range from small coffee talks at the libraries with just a couple of people to large halls with 40, 50 people or so, and then a number of Zooms sprinkled in to try and reach those who aren't able to make it in person. Next slide, please. Beyond going in person and to you, we sought to do a mailer survey. So we did a survey, we outreached a survey in a number of different ways. We did direct mail to everyone's mailbox, but we also handed out postcards at all of those events that I mentioned previously. As well as going to the extent of hanging banners at the fall high school football game. So in response, I think you see 1,500 responses is pretty darn good for the size community that we have. And going through those survey responses is really what the LCP's next step is charged with as we're developing this vision. Next slide, please. That survey summary, we've started with the help of our consultants, kind of distill out what are some of those top priorities. And as you'll see shortly here, they very much align with a lot of the key themes that we heard in our on our in-person activities. Next slide. So those key themes from all of our public engagement so far, we've tried to distill down into a dozen or so key topics that we've heard across the board, because a lot of these things don't know our village imaginary lines that we've laid out a long time ago. These are big items that impact us all on a day-to-day basis. So I'll just quickly go through these, and we can have more discussion later. But the key themes that we've heard through our engagement is probably number one overall, a constant theme was protect water quality in all forms, that being harbors, rivers, ponds, drinking water. And each village had a little bit of different take on it. What we heard for water quality in Katuitt was more related to harbors, whereas West Barnstable was regarding drinking water. Beyond that, we heard protect the environmental resources that Barnstable maintains, including our open space, our beaches, lakes, ponds, habitat, trails, vistas. We're really blessed to have quite a bit of natural resources that we hold true, and hopefully it sounds like one of the key themes that takeaway was that we want to continue to do that, and we want to be a home for that. Next, kind of goes along with this theme, is preserve and enhance tree canopy throughout the town, but especially in Hyannis. So this goes along with our takeaway was really protecting our open spaces, but also enhancing areas that may lack open space. And what we've heard consistently was, the center of Hyannis here and an ability to improve what may be lacking in open space or lacking in tree canopy. Next is protect and enhance tourist appeal, such as the quaint Cape Cod features, beaches, open spaces, etc. While we hear a lot of themes about year-round living, we understand that this is a destination and an economic driver that is tourism, and so looking at ways to protect and enhance that did come out as a very strong key theme. Preserve our diverse community character that is unique to each village. I think what we've heard throughout was that while there are some overarching themes that crisscross our town, each village does have unique character and should be treated as such. And so that was definitely a key theme that we heard. And next kind of goes along with that is preserve historic structures, features, and the traveled ways that provide that Cape Cod charm. And again, you know, that what is historic in Hyannis may be different than, you know, what is important and historic in, say, Osterville or Centerville. So that's again something that we've heard quite a bit. Next is expand housing options and opportunities at affordable prices for all ages. Obviously, housing is top of mind to a lot of people, and that was something that we heard quite a bit. And it ranged. It ranged from housing options for seniors to keep them living in the community that they grew up in, housing options for their kids that may have moved away and want to return, housing options for families that want to come here and become year-round residents of this community. Next is reduce traffic congestion and speeding and improve pedestrian safety. So obviously, I think we all knew going into this, traffic congestion was certainly going to be a key concern. You know, we are a little bit away from the peak season, so maybe it didn't rise up as much as one would have thought. But one of the key things that we took away was it seemed most of the time parallel with safety and pedestrian safety. So walkability seemed to be something that was important, especially in our village centers, slowing down speeds and improving our abilities to get around on foot or just enjoy the outdoors was certainly something that we heard. Provide more opportunities for children and families. That being through recreational options, village events, medical access, specialized education, etc. So that was something that we heard quite a bit going back to, I guess, the housing for families, also supportive services for families. You know, just getting a PCP out here in Barnstable can be a struggle, and getting those maybe specialized medical services are somewhat sparse. Create more year-round employment opportunities, especially in the blue economy and job sectors that provide living wages. So we talk about our tourism and our tourist employment, which is very important, obviously, but there was a growing sentiment that we should also be looking for that kind of higher end, higher pay, year-round employment, and what are some ways we can do to bring that type of employment into Barnstable. Improve safety in the village centers and support of health and human services for those in need. And so safety was kind of a key word that continually rose to the top in all the villages and events that we went to. Foster opportunities to form community connections and to get to know their neighbors. This was one that I found really intriguing. So maybe not specifically land use related, but it was just interesting, a common theme of we're kind of losing the sense of our neighborhoods where we all gathered and knew one another and had opportunities to congregate, and that was missed. And the key theme there was just looking for ways we can improve that in any form, and so we thought that was important to keep here. And lastly, going along with that, increase proactive communication and transparency from town government. So as we went through all of our community engagement, you know, we would always ask the question, how can we reach more individuals? And there was a common thread of, you know, maybe other methods of communication are necessary. Maybe our local government needs to rethink how we are communicating with our residents and our businesses, and so that was a common theme that we think we should probably include. Again, not land use based perhaps, but something that's important that would make a plan successful in the future. So that's a lot, and I know we can get into a little bit, but I'm gonna hand it back over to Dylan for existing conditions.
Hi, so I'll actually take it from here instead of Dylan. My name is Carly Vendetti, and I am with Barrett Planning Group. I will be running you through some high points from our existing conditions report. If you could advance the next slide, please. So this Barnstable LCP update is modeled after the organization of the Cape Cod Commission's Regional Policy Plan, which focuses on natural, built, and community systems. Just to run through some of those high-level takeaways, each system has a couple different subsections that are actually outlined in some fact sheets that are up on the LCP website, and hopefully you have them downloaded. Please advance to the next one. So for natural systems, continuing to protect open space and recreation areas is important for the preservation of natural resources such as water quality, wetlands, plant and wildlife biodiversity within the town, as well as providing health benefits for residents and visitors, such as places to exercise and enjoy being outdoors. Sustaining the health of marine waters and other coastal resources is critical for the environment, economy, and the way of life in Barnstable. So the town has a coastal resource management plan that focuses on the 3 bays and Centerville River systems, and the town has recently updated their hazard mitigation plan, which has an important policy document for marine waters and coastal areas that identifies priority projects to help protect the most vulnerable locations like barrier beaches and coastal dunes. Moving on to built systems. Land use decisions directly impact the protection of sensitive environments that I previously mentioned, and they also impact resilient development, redevelopment, and have led to much of Barnstable's car-oriented transportation infrastructure. Right now, the Barnstable Department of Public Works Highway Division maintains 271 miles of public roads and provides emergency repairs on 200 miles of private roads, which is pretty extensive. Along with this, protecting water quality, as mentioned in the survey, is vital to the health and future of the Barnstable community and its drinking water supply. Big factors of this include wastewater and stormwater management, as they play critical roles in maintaining a high quality of life. The districts are continuously making strides against concerns of chemical detection, including PFAS and PFOA, in the water supply, and then concerns regarding a projected drinking water triggered a 2019 study completed by Weston and Sampson, determining other well and treatment sites. Moving on to community systems. Barnstable's historic buildings, properties, and streetscapes, along with local historic districts, tell the town's story, creating a really unique sense of place. The town's cultural resources celebrate Barnstable's vibrant art scene, maritime traditions, and historic assets. 40% of the county's National Register listings are in Barnstable, which is a huge, huge gain for the region, as well as the Cape as a whole. And then the local and regional housing environment is intrinsically linked to the health of the local economy. Employers report staffing challenges resulting from the lack of affordability, and an estimated 37% of Barnstable households are cost burdened at this time. So I think that includes, that summarizes all of our high points.
Thanks, Carly. All right, so I'm going to talk about what a vision is. So we're here to start work on creating a vision for the future of Barnstable. We're aiming for a vision that would last for 10 or 20 years. And I think the best way to do this is to just imagine what you want your community to be. What could it be at its very best? And then the goal is to figure out the words that describe that. What are the verbs? What are the adjectives? What are the nouns? What do you want this place to look like and feel like in 20 years? The vision is, it's a really integral part of the comprehensive plan because it's the ultimate sort of goal you're leading to. It's the aspiration. It's not a concrete goal. It's not a SMART goal with specific, measurable, whatever, reliable, timely, all those nice terms, but it's an aspiration that everything else is aiming towards. So you should be able to read it and understand where you want to go, and use that to keep track of the town's progress. Because you're on Cape Cod, there's another level here, which is that the vision for your local comprehensive plan has to align with the Cape Cod Commission's regional policy plan and its vision. So the guidance from the Cape Cod Commission is that a vision statement expresses the shared values of the community for future growth and development and resource protection, and represents a growth policy for the community. So it doesn't have to be just a growth policy, but it does need to incorporate a growth policy into it. So here are some examples of vision statements from other comprehensive plans. These are not picked because Cambridge or Greensboro, North Carolina, is like Barnstable. These are diverse communities, right? We picked them because these were award-winning plans, and also because they represent different ways of approaching a vision statement. So the vision for Cambridge is a forward-thinking, welcoming, and diverse city. We enjoy a high quality of life and thrive in a sustainable, inclusive, and connected community. And this vision statement also includes 2 pages of core values. So today we're going to work on the vision proper, and we're also going to work on those core values, because the values help us understand why you want to do something, why you want to be a certain way in the future. Greensboro's vision is a bit more punchy. So in 2040, Greensboro will be the best mid-sized city in America, the greenest city in the Southeast, equitable, diverse, and inclusive, making history, and a city of inspiration. So you can see 2 different approaches to writing a vision here. We're not going to spend a lot of time thinking about like the format of the vision, but I do want you to keep in mind how you might want your town to be representing itself. Do you want something that's flowery, or do you want something that's like direct and even includes some superlatives like the best mid-sized city in America? This is your vision from the 2020 local comprehensive plan. You can see in the vision section of that plan, there was kind of the vision proper, which is the gray box at the top, a plan concept that describes the overall sort of idea of the plan. It's largely about sustainability, and then some comprehensive plan goals. For this project and at this phase in the project, we're not getting to the comprehensive plan goals, but it's useful to keep in mind the sorts of things that might be priorities. So we're going to call those priorities today, as opposed to goals. And they're the sorts of things that have come out of the previous engagement. So when we go into our breakout groups, we're going to look at those themes from the previous engagement, or the priorities from previous engagement, and talk about whether those are sort of can be serve as the bedrock of the vision. In the breakout groups, we're also going to talk specifically about the previous vision. So I'm going to read it now, just so that's out of the way, and we all have a common framework to start with. So the 7 diverse yet interconnected villages of Barnstable form one community that is an integral part of Cape Cod. As the town in 2010 has been shaped by its past, through this plan, Barnstable will shape a sustainable future. The town will preserve its history, environment, and community for future generations through active stewardship of community character and quality of life, while balancing growth, infrastructure, and natural systems. So again, our goal today is to begin to flesh out what a vision, something like this, will be for the comprehensive plan. So there's one piece that I think I neglected to speak to, which is the values piece. So I mentioned that Cambridge had two pages of values in its vision, and Greensboro also had about 5 value statements. So just to give a definition to that, values are sort of the core underlying beliefs that people have. So they may be sort of ethical beliefs or moral beliefs, or really strongly held just ideas. They're why you orient your life the way you do. And so we're looking for the community values for Barnstable. What are the shared ideas that unite your idea of what is good? What's good for people? What's good for the environment? And why are the things that we think are good? So we're really trying to get to the heart of what's important to you as a community. Okay, so here are some ground rules for the breakout groups. So we'd like people to speak one at a time so that we can hear what everybody is saying. This is a conversation and a brainstorming session. We don't need to debate detailed facts. We're here to think about things in the big picture and to really build off each other's ideas. So the hope is that together we can produce something better than we can produce on our own. Please try to be respectful and courteous of each other, and also try to make sure everyone has a chance to speak. So if you're somebody who talks a lot, try to step back a little bit. And if you're someone who doesn't speak as much, try to put yourself out there and speak more than you're normally comfortable with. So as I said earlier, we're going to have about 45 minutes for breakout groups. We might even be able to get a little bit more time in there because we've gotten through the presentation quickly. So Jack, are the breakout groups ready?
Yes, they are.
Excellent. So what's going to happen now is Jack is going to press a button, and you will all be moved into separate breakout groups. You don't need to do anything. It's going to happen automatically. And it'll look just like the regular Zoom meeting you're in, except that you'll be with about 8 to 10 other people instead of 40 other people. So what we're going to do now is share some of what we all talked about in our groups and see how much commonality or difference there is amongst them. Are any of the facilitators feeling like well prepared to do the report out right now?
I am, Dylan, because
Excellent.
we wrote it down on the slides.
Excellent.
If you don't mind me.
Could you fix the Zoom so that we can see everybody who's here? I'd love to be able to see everybody.
Yeah, so if you go and that's controlled on your end. If you go on the upper right corner of your screen, at least on my screen.
Oh, okay. Now it just appeared. It wasn't there. Okay, thank you.
So this is group number 2. We sort of had a really good discussion and then tried to list the priorities. And of course, when you list them, you lose a lot of the nuance that people talk about. So we have more in the notes, but obviously a lot of these reflect what we've been talked about, but really with a focus on people as the sort of purpose of the planning process. And so whether it's protecting the environment as the basis of an economy and quality of life that serves the population, enhancing social services. We talked a lot about the need for that, and then public transportation as sort of being fundamental to quality of life for all different populations. And then an interesting conversation about the importance of really building on historic resources, and more than just talking about we need to protect our quaintness and charm of Cape Cod, but really trying to understand the utility of that and how, specifically those resources impact economy, quality of life, and so on, and really working intentionally to protect those resources. We talked about an economy that needs to serve the people in Barnstable, is particularly allowing people who work in that economy to be able to live there. That was so important. We wrote it twice. And then including underrepresented voices in the process, which we just sort of started talking about what that means in terms of people of color, indigenous populations, and so on. But obviously there's a lot to talk about there. And then we talked about sort of the values that underlie these priorities, which, as we discussed, is sort of the flip side of this is what we want to do. And the values sort of represent why we want to do it. So build systems, serving the community systems and the natural systems. So really thinking about what kind of infrastructure we need, not just to make traffic flow better, but really to look at everything through the perspective of what enhances the life of the community and protects the environment. And it really focus again on the balance between people and the environment, to focus on the interconnectedness of people and the environment, not separate parts of this plan, but really integrated parts of it. Making decisions based on long-term sustainability, even though that adds a lot of complexity and cost, perhaps, to the planning process as well as the implementation. And then to include all communities in planning just as a value, that being fundamental to making a good plan and implementing a good plan. And then we talked about what flows from that is the value of focusing on small local businesses, encouraging young people and families, and local creators. And then we started to talk about a little bit what the focus of the vision is, and I think for most in our group, probably some combination of all of these things, but it was mentioned that sustainability really needs to be the touchstone for the plan. Even it was obviously written as part of the 2010 plan, but now is a good opportunity to look again as what does that mean in terms of the economy, in terms of the environment, in terms of the social structure and support systems in the community. And then obviously building resilience in the face of climate change has become much more important in the last 13 years. Does that capture everything from our group? I know it doesn't capture everything, but more or less.
Excellent job, Peter.
All right. Back to you.
I think I'll go next. I didn't follow my own directions and write things down in the slide. So my report out's a little messier than that. So we had a very interesting conversation. I think in terms of the priorities that I heard, water quality came out very strongly as a priority. Protecting open space, preserving open space, protecting the environment in general also was mentioned. Somebody in the conversation said that basically the full left side of that slide that showed the key themes were really the most important things. And those were basically all about environmental protection, I think, as well as protection of existing character of villages. Another topic that we talked a lot about was housing, the need for housing for all types of people, basically. Housing for older adults, housing for young families, making sure that there's housing so that there are opportunities for people who work in the town to live in the town so that your economy can continue to survive and thrive. A priority that came up was the need to be a green community, by which I think people were meant, responding to climate change, mitigating climate change through things like green energy and recycling and solar panels and EV charging stations. So it's similar to the idea of sustainability that was in the last master plan, but I think getting more specific about what the town can be doing on an individual and on a community basis to sort of reduce your environmental footprint. And then we also talked about as a priority, the need for redevelopment versus development. So redeveloping existing built areas as opposed to developing in undeveloped areas. The values that seem to underlie those things were, care for the environment, care for other species, and so forth. Protection or maintenance of human health, providing opportunities for everybody, and then caring for other people, which came up towards the end of the conversation, particularly around the sense of a lack of safety in downtown Hyannis, and how that needed to be addressed to care for the people who are making other people feel safe and also making sure that people can feel safe in downtown Hyannis. In terms of the vision, when we talked about the vision, we talked a lot about redevelopment versus development. And so there's strong support for preserving villages. And then the idea of redeveloping areas along your more major corridors, and specifically kind of transforming those into more walkable, mixed use, I suppose, village center-like places. So somebody talked about having housing above stores, having making it easier to walk around and so forth, and cited Mashpee Commons as a potential model for that. All right, that's my summary. I'm going to call on Carly.
Hi, Dylan. I'll do the report out. Carly did a
Okay.
great job facilitating our group. Okay, so for the community priorities and community values, some things that people just wanted to make sure was included, and I think they were, but I have under the is anything missing? Climate change, human services, community character, and transportation infrastructure came to mind as things to make sure we're keeping in mind. Looking ahead for the coming decades, our group was interested in neighborhood life, residents living next to each other, and how that dynamic changes with Airbnbs and short-term rentals, which led to a conversation that was kind of woven throughout. Our discussion was feeling strongly that the vision should somehow help guide the town forward in a way that kind of is able to think through impacts of things that maybe aren't anticipated from past experiences, such as how the dynamic might change with a decision of short-term rentals or a new bridge or technology, how that affects different characteristics of the town. They also, a high priority is human services and taking care of the people that live in Barnstable. And then under the community vision, it was really interesting. I think one reaction was it's boring, and the other, and the same person, often the same people might have agreed with the other, is that it does describe the character of a community that is worth preserving. So maybe getting, just revamping it, getting more detailed, thinking through some of the major future changes and what the impacts to the town are, so the town can be ready to respond to the impacts. What has changed since 2010 that the new vision should address, and that's where technology came up. It also affects higher wage jobs in a good way, and the economy. So trying to think ahead toward what the next 10 or 20 years will bring and what different aspects of community that will affect. In terms of what the group would like Barnstable to be like in 10 or 20 years, for the environment, dealing with the effects of climate change are going to lead to some very difficult decisions about what to let go or what to reinforce, and the acknowledgement of the community needing to make some very difficult decisions came up under other topics as well, sort of a trade-off of priorities and different pressing issues. Also, it came in terms of development. There's not much land to build upon. Looking into redevelopment was expressed of interest. More access to transportation, more options on the Cape, easier access to Boston so people could still live in Barnstable but work elsewhere. Need to address human services. There was a desire to have some kind of school or college that would bring students to the Cape and allow them to live and work there after. Mixed income housing in not only Hyannis, but all the villages. Housing decisions on how the town moves forward and how villages are going to be effective with the need for more housing. And they wish the vision statement would say that the town, represents the people and is enveloped around the interests of their, the residents. Principles or values that could be included in the vision: better overall urban design, street trees, planning for connection between residential areas, open space to downtown Hyannis. They thought Katuitt urban design was pretty good. What would the vision need to say to inspire you? So we kind of summarized, the synthesized and said housing for all, planning for climate change, developing policies to guide urban design and connectivity, continuing to cultivate community character and preservation, consider the interrelated impacts of decisions, sustainable year-round education opportunities and economic growth. And the group really values their beautiful, wonderful community and their wish for that all citizens have sustainable and healthy lives. That is all.
Thanks, Jill. Alexis, I have to keep it as brief as possible because we're getting close to the end of our time together.
So I was actually with Peter. I think Jeff's group.
Jeff's group, sorry.
All right, and I can be very quick and not to give short shrift to my group because we were awesome. We had great conversations and covered a lot of the things that have been mentioned already. So I will keep it very high level. One of the things we encouraged everyone to do was think of some keywords. So in terms of the top priorities, water quality, environmental resources, infrastructure, and that's both technological and hard infrastructure, roads, bridges, as well as the community character at each village level. Some of the key words that our group discussed was a future that is connected, sustainable, clean, balanced, preservation, stewardship, focus on future generations, and a plan that is proactive. And then lastly, I will also say some of the key themes that the group would like to see reflected in not only the vision, but the plan overall as a concept of balance, balancing resources, balancing the need to focus on villages as well as townwide direction. How do we prioritize all of these issues? Because they're all important and we want to do them all, but how do we prioritize? How do we involve performance metrics so that we know what we've achieved and what we've achieved success, and really continuing with this concept of transparency in government. And that is my 30-second spiel. Of course, there was a lot more discussed than that.
Thanks, Jeff. All right, so I wanted to thank you all for coming today. The next step for this is we're going to have basically the same meeting over again tomorrow in person. So you all don't need to come to that, but you're welcome to if you want to do it all over again. And after that, we're going to basically summarize the input that we heard and bring that to the steering committee for this project. I see several of the members of that group here today, and go over it with them and start to flesh out what the vision should be. So we'll be primarily working with them to do that. So again, thank you for your time. And I see one person raise their hand. Ken, do you want to say something?
Listening to this, it's frightening. There is a gigantic bag of ideas, thoughts, missions, whatever. To me, a vision statement needs to be succinct. It needs to be clear, and it needs to be encouraging. And I just see what has been said has just been so much. It's impossible to cover it all, and everything will lead to something else worse happening. So I hate to be such a pessimist about this, but I've done this for too long. Sorry.
All right. Well, on that sad note.
Sorry.
Hopefully we can pull it all together and make it into something that's concise and inspiring and cogent. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Don't feel bad, Ken. I said it was superfluous, the vision statement.
Well, until we see people of color on this Zoom call or in the audience, I don't think anything will be really equitable.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you all. See how it goes. Bye-bye.